In this video, I'm going to be building every Batman movie in LEGO. However, as an added challenge, each build must be completed in the time it would take to watch that movie. So I'll have 2 hours and 6 minutes to build Batman from 1989, and the scene I will be building is the final battle between Batman and the Joker. Starting off with the street, which will have a bunch of road lines and even a crosswalk. Around the edges, let's go ahead and add in the sidewalks. Now let's begin on the foundation of the first building, which I made look super industrial to match the movie. On top of it will be another floor with a bunch of windows mixed in, and to wrap up, some streetlights attached to the front, which actually work. Alright, that's the first building done, but at this point I only have 55 minutes remaining, so I better start on the next building, which will have a bunch of metal support pillars going all the way up. Another thing I'll want to add is the Batwing, because it's a big part of the scene, so let's get it built. This set is a perfect recreation and even comes with Joker and Batman minifigures, so let's load up Batman and place him flying into the city. Down on the street will be the Joker, surrounded by a ton of money, and over here on the sidewalk are two of his men. And that's the first film done, in just 2 hours and 6 minutes. I really like the way the scene turned out. The second movie is Batman Returns, where Batman in fact returns to Gotham to take down a political rival who lives in a zoo, which is actually the scene I'll be building in 2 hours and 6 minutes. To start off Penguin's secret lair, we'll add a border around the edges and a floating island in the middle. This is a good start, but I think we'll need to add in a bunch of water. Alright, that's much better, but most importantly, very quick. Now I'll start building the rock structure on the island, and at the very top, a statue of a seal. Over on the side will be the main entrance into the base, which has this giant archway and for added safety, this life preserver. Lastly, a pair of seagulls who are just chilling on top. Along the back wall will be even more arches where we can attach this cage, which can be opened up to trap people inside. So I'd recommend subscribing, or you might end up in here too. At this point, I only have 20 minutes remaining, so let's finish up by adding in this air conditioning unit to keep the place cool. And by twisting this lever around the back, the fan actually spins. On the island, let's add two penguins who are armed with missile launchers, and up front, the actual penguin, who is on his rubber ducky ship. Lastly, Batman entering the lair in his boat. And that marks the completion of the second movie. This scene definitely reminds me of Arctic World from the film. Now it's time to move on to the next movie in the franchise, Batman Forever, and I've decided to recreate Wayne Manor, for which I'll have 2 hours and 1 entire minute to build. Let's begin with the driveway leading up to the mansion, which is surrounded by some very nicely maintained grass. I guess Alfred has been keeping busy. On top of the field, there will also be 2 bushes. Now with the grounds complete, we should begin construction on the actual house, which will consist of 2 main colors and an absolute ton of windows, and up front next to the door, 2 hanging lanterns. Alright, the ground floor is now complete, so let's move on to the second, which can now be popped into place. Now I'll spend the remaining time finishing up the balconies and the roof at the very top. Back out front, let's add Batman returning from a mission with Alfred greeting him, and that's the completed Wayne Manor. I think it was a good idea to switch it up and not just build another battle, like in the next movie, Batman and Robin from 1997, in which they battle against Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy, and the scene I will be building is the fight in the Gotham Museum. In the movie, the floor of the museum has cool patterns, so I'll recreate that here. Up next will be the back wall, which has an arched entry and 2 perfectly round windows. Right in front of the entrance will be some steps covered in ice, since this is where Mr. Freeze will be entering, and since he's in here, I'll need to cover the rest of the museum with even more ice. Now might also be a good time to include the large wooden pillars spread around the room. Those are looking nice, but it's still very empty in here, so let's fix that by placing down this display with a valuable gem inside. In the very middle, another stone, but this time a diamond, and finally on the far side, an Egyptian mummy that's on display. By far the largest item in the museum is this Brachiosaurus. Right in front of it, let's add in Robin, and sneaking across the other side will be Batman. This turned out to be quite an intense battle, and I think the entire museum turned out pretty cool. I would definitely go here. At this point, we've completed the first 4 Batman movies, so it's time to move on to the next 3 films from the Dark Knight franchise, starting with Batman Begins, in which Bruce Wayne trains to become a ninja, but instead ends up becoming Batman, while attempting to stop his friend from blowing up Gotham, which is exactly the scene I'll be building. We'll start off with the base that has a rat and some other garbage on it. Right on top, we can build the super tall support pillars, which I'll need 2 of, so I went ahead and made another. Now it's time to attach the tracks of the train in between. And finally, let's add in these fancy arches on both sides. But we are still missing one thing, and it's the train itself. Luckily for me, LEGO made the Spider-Man 2 set, which does a great job at recreating the scene from that movie, but so I can use it for the Batman scene, let's go ahead and remove all the Spider-Man stuff. Perfect, we now have a normal train, which can be added into place. Flying along the side will be Batman, who is using his grappling hook to stay attached. And at the very top is Ra's al Ghul, who's about to fight him. I really hope this train doesn't go off the tracks, but that's not my problem anymore since it's time to move on to my personal favorite Batman movie, The Dark Knight, in which he ends up fighting a dog, a clown, and a dude who stole his girl. All of that just to fall off his bike. The scene I will be building is when the Joker blows up his car, and I'll have 2 hours and 32 minutes to build it. Up first, we'll need a large section of the road, and I did my best to mix in a bunch of damage since the roads are a little rough. On both sides, there will be these strong pillars and a divider in the middle. Thankfully, there will also be a speed limit sign. In the scene, the Joker and his men have a semi-truck, so I built one, starting with the main body, where we can connect all the wheels, and on the back a giant cargo hold, which is where we can have the Joker and his goons positioned, and then the roof on top. Around the back, the license plate, and now let's finish up the front with the driver, windshield, and another roof. The semi-truck is now complete, and I think I did a great job. It even manages to roll. I did spend well over an hour on it, so let's get it added in since there's still more to do, like including the tumbler. However, this Lego set is way too big, but thankfully I have this custom version which is a more accurate size compared to the one in the film, so I'll use that instead. The last thing we need to get done is the roof of the overpass. I even went ahead and mixed in some overhead lamps. With that done, let's get it into place. And the very last thing to add is this explosion, and here's the completed scene from The Dark Knight. I think it turned out great, and with the lights off, it's even cooler. The last Dark Knight movie is Dark Knight Rises, which is when Bruce Wayne comes out of retirement, fights some dude in a mask since Gotham is absolutely cooked, and then he goes into retirement again. I think the coolest scene to build would be when Batman escapes the police, so to start out we'll need to get the main street in place, and right behind it the start of an alleyway, where there's a bunch of garbage laying around. Next we should start on the skyscraper. This is a good start, but it's nowhere near tall enough, so I went ahead and made this thing as tall as possible, which definitely looks more like a real skyscraper now. Let's also go ahead and get these streetlights added in, and on the far side a traffic light, but since I still have time remaining, I think we should get these lit up. Alright, that's much better. Next we'll need to add in the police cars that chased Batman, who will also need his own vehicle, this custom bat, which looks spot on, and it's even got a bunch of weapons and searchlights up front, and underneath, 2 working propellers, and it's all attached to this super strong stand, which already positions the ship at a cool angle. Now we should go ahead and get Batman inside, and add the bat into the build, and to stop him the police have brought in plenty of additional officers, and that marks the completion of the 7th Batman movie, which ended up looking really good, and it's definitely one of the tallest things I've ever built. Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice is up next, where Batman decides fighting normal villains isn't tough enough, so he goes up against Superman. They end up having an epic duel, which is the scene I'm going to be building, and I have 2 hours and 31 minutes. Since this area is covered in mud, I'll need to mix in a lot of dirt and even some larger puddles. The building where Batman and Superman have their fight has a stone foundation and a couple of arches and pillars throughout, and to finish the walls we'll need to fill them up with different colored bricks. Behind them we can go ahead and pop in the windows, and on top of that the rest of the wall, which also serves as the roof, which has a couple of pigeons enjoying the show. And finally on the corner, this statue. Now the main building is complete, but I still have 30 minutes remaining, so I'll go ahead and add in this fence, along with some other construction equipment. On the other side of the build is this shipping container, which houses one of Batman's turrets, which he plans to use against Superman, who will be over here. And lastly, Batman in his brand new armor. And just like that, we've built Batman vs Superman, and I'm sure this battle is going to be quite intense, but we have to move on to our next movie, Justice League. In this, Batman teams up with a squad of other superheroes to stop an alien invasion. And I know what you're thinking. No, this is not the Avengers, it's Justice League. And I'll have 2 hours to build it. The alien's base on Earth is out in this giant wasteland, so the road going to it will be completely destroyed, and the ground around it will be covered in this orange dirt. But there are still some plants spread around. In the corner will be this giant water tower with a ladder hanging off the side. The main focus of this scene is the Batmobile, which comes in this brand new set. The car actually turned out really good. I also like that the minifigure can fit right inside. However, in the movie, the Batmobile is a bit more armored, so let's fix that by adding in these machine guns on both sides, and mounted on top of the roof this giant cannon. Alright, it's now ready for action, so let's get it added in. And lastly, to make it look more realistic, some of these shooting effects. Now would also be a good time to add in the Flash, and up front, Wonder Woman battling against 2 aliens. Flying high above the battle is Cyborg, who's got his hands full with 3 more. This turned out to be quite a large battle, and I sure hope the humans win, because I still needed to build 2 more movies. One of them being the Lego Batman movie, in which Batman is now a Lego, so I'm building a Lego movie in Lego. Okay. Anyways, the scene I've selected is when the Joker and all of Gotham's villains turn themselves into the police. Let's begin with the pathways and the railings wrapping around the entire build, since in the middle there will be an ice skating ring, which is colored green, so that's why this entire area will be filled in. And now to make it look like ice, let's slide this transparent section on top. I actually think that worked, so now let's flip this around and add in a spot for guests who enjoy the event. Alright, that looks great, but we are still missing one thing, and it's the Joker's giant present, which I'll need to build as well. And on top, the lid with a bow to wrap it up. Let's go ahead and slide it into place. On the ice, we can start adding in all of Gotham's villains, the biggest being Clayface, which has posable limbs, and his arms can be used to blast out clay. With him in there, we've gathered all of the villains into one spot, who can now be arrested by Batman and the new commissioner, which can also be recreated by throwing them all into the gift box. With everybody locked up, the build is now complete. Now it's time for the most recent movie in the franchise, The Batman, in which he goes on a scavenger hunt, tries to rizz up Catwoman, and ends up flooding the entire city. And the scene I'm going to be building is when Catwoman and him try to take down the Penguin's operations. Let's get started with a concrete road which is covered with a bunch of water. Up next is the actual building. This section of the wall is meant to look pretty worn out. I also left these big gaps where the garage doors can slide into place. They can also be raised up to reveal the stuff stored inside. Next, let's add in this giant sign which says Gotham. And honestly, it took me longer to make than I'd like to admit, so I better hurry up and finish the next part of the roof, which can be angled backward. And up there we can add in this seagull. Since this is a storage warehouse, there will need to be a bunch of boxes scattered around. Behind one of them, Catwoman is sneaking around. In the middle will be Penguin along with his bodyguards. And speeding in from the side is Batman in his car. Watch out, because he totally just hit that guy. Anyways, Penguin's compound is now complete, and I like the way it turned out. And that has been every single Batman movie in LEGO. Let me know in the comments down below whatever scenes you would have liked to see me build. And if you enjoyed, consider watching one of my other superhero videos. And thanks for watching.